It's a great privilege to me to be here today and share my volunteer experience. I arrived in South Sudan a year after independence to work with UN Women as Gender and Governance Advisor to the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare. And I remember when I arrived, I went to a security training, which is routine to all UN staff. And our trainer said, just know that anything can happen in a post-conflict and conflict country such as South Sudan. And one of the participants asked what he meant. And the trainer simply said, death. And I learned in that moment that humanitarian work has a price. And later, we lost our colleagues, friends, and community members with the outbreak of the civil war in 2013. When I arrived in South Sudan, nation building and state reconstruction were the center of discussion. And as a lawyer, I went with a passion to ensure the rights of women and children were aligned with international human rights conventions. However, one of the tasks that was waiting on my desk was to write a legal opinion on the advantages and disadvantages of ratifying human rights conventions to the Parliament of South Sudan, because South Sudan had ratified none of them yet by then. We needed to engage with the government and convince them that ratifying those international human rights conventions had a lot of benefits. But we had to be frank as well, that ratifying those could be disadvantageous to a newly formed state with limited human resources to implement those commitments. In the end, we succeeded. South Sudan ratified Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women and Convention on the Rights of the Child. While I was doing my day-to-day task, I felt the need to train the community on gender-based violence, and I volunteered to train the community in the western part of the country. When we arrived, we were warmly received by the group of women who were involved in adult literacy and economic empowerment program. I was overwhelmed by their generosity. They were willing to provide us with food and drinks from the very scarce resources they had. The next day, the training started with prayer and blessings. And it made me feel that the training was very important to them. During the training, I met a 14-year-old. She was one of our trainees, and she was a school dropout. Her father had died, and her stepfather wasn't willing to pay for her secondary school. While she was a dropout, she became pregnant. Her stepfather was unhappy, and she was forced to leave her parents' house. She gave birth in her boyfriend's parents' house. After 3 months, her boyfriend's family were no longer able to provide to her and her child. She decided to move back home. And when she moved back home, her stepfather was physically abusing her mother, which led the mother to move out of her house. The girl remained alone with her child and stepfather. The stepfather then started making sexual advances, which she refused. He started beating her up, and she was tired of the abusive environment. She looked for a way out, but she didn't know what to do. That was when she heard about the group who were involved in economic empowerment and adult literacy program. She joined the group, and she reported her case to the group. The group then mobilized the police to go and look for the man. The man was arrested and put in police custody. After the training, the girl said she would know what to do if she was abused again. She also said that she would start reporting cases of violence against women and girls in her community. I was very happy that we made a tiny contribution to the huge problem they had. As a volunteer, my intention was to share what I had, my skills and experience. But I saw that volunteerism is part of the culture of South Sudan. People in South Sudan care about each other. The young support the old and the strong support the weak. In addition to learning about the deep-rooted gender inequality and violence against women and girls, the community had taught me what giving truly means by sharing what they had. Now I moved to a new and exciting experience, to Partners for Prevention of Violence Against Women and Girls regional joint program in Asia and Pacific, where we support program intervention in 6 countries. And we have other 4 UN volunteers stationed in different countries in the region. And we promote volunteerism among the community for sustainable change. I've learned that gender and prevention of violence against women and girls require a unique and contextual approach, which involves respect to the value and culture of the community. The culture of South Sudan and this region are entirely different. But I have learned in my work that it all requires respect, sensitivity, and sharing. And to me, that's what volunteerism is. I'm very privileged to have another chance as a volunteer, where I continue to share my skills, enthusiasm, and experience in Africa to Asia Pacific region. And what I get in return is spiritual satisfaction, which is priceless. Thank you to the people of South Sudan, and thank you for listening.